Hello, I'm Graham Horton. Welcome to part 5 of this video tutorial series where I'm looking at the Panasonic Lumix FZ80 camera for new users. Now in today's video we're specifically looking at shooting video with this camera. I can see from the opening introductory clips the camera is very capable of producing some fantastic video if you understand the right settings to use under what circumstances. So this video is a reason to show you how to set up the camera, what accessories you might need to use, and the best way to go about shooting video. Now it's true to say that this camera does have some limitations when you're shooting video, notwithstanding the fact that we haven't got an audio input port. So it means any audio you capture is either through the internal mics, which are the two sort of small holes on the top of the flash housing, which means you are subjected to a lot of ambient noise such as wind, the room ambience and that sort of thing. Ideally to capture good audio you need to be using an external recorder. Now at the moment I'm using the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra to record the video using a lavalier microphone and a wireless microphone system. Now you could actually use that system to record the audio separately to your video with the camera and then synchronize the two tracks in post-production and then delete the camera track. You're just using the camera track as your synchronization source. I'll show you how you begin doing that in the video. I've been explaining the differences between the recording format and the recording quality and which one you should choose, and also look at the way we can adjust the shutter speed of the camera to give us that cinematic look. Quite often if we leave the camera in the auto mode on a bright sunny day like today, you'll notice that motion is a little staccato. We don't get that nice fluid motion that you normally see with our normal eyesight. So we need to set the camera up in a mode that will give us that cinematic look, and I'll be showing you how we can do that. So let's get started. Let's have a look at recording format and then recording quality. Now if you go to the menu setup under the record setup for video, on page 1 of 5 you'll see at the very bottom of that page recording format, and if you cursor to the right you'll find you've got two settings there, AVC-HD and MP4. Now AVC-HD is a compressed file format. You need quite a powerful PC to decompress that, so if you've got an older PC you might still use an AVC-HD. In that case, shoot in MP4. And in fact MP4 is the only format available if you want to shoot in 4K video, which I do recommend you do with this camera. So set the option there to MP4. Then if you cursor down to the next page, the top one is recording quality. So you can see we've got options there under recording quality of 4K 30p, 4K 25p, Full HD 60p, Full HD 50p, Full HD 30p, Full HD 25p, and HD 30p and HD 25p. Panasonic removed the VGA format with this particular camera as not many people want to shoot in the lower standard of a VGA mode. Notice there's no 24 frames per second, that's been reserved for the higher grade camera, so if you wanted to create that ultimate cinematic look, I'm afraid with this camera you can't unlock the 24 frames per second. So I would recommend that you shoot in the MP4 format and then in 4K 30 or 25p depending on your region. Now setting up for that 4K 30p does mean that I've got 4 times the amount of available information from the sensor as you do have when you're shooting in 1080p. You can see on screen now my graphic of how this works. You can see 1080p is exactly 1/4 of a full frame 4K picture, so you're getting 4 times more information on that scene. Of course that does need a higher bit rate, and to achieve that the bit rate is the amount of data that you're writing to the card over a period of time. With 4K you're talking about towards 100 megabits per second to write to a card to give you sufficient detail. If you're shooting in AVC-HD or 1080p then that is about 28 megabits per second, so you can see it's a lower bit rate, but if you multiply that up by 4 you come up to about the same 100 megabits as you do when you're shooting 4K. Now we've set up for 4K 30p, we need now to set up the camera to be able to shoot in video mode. Now it's true you can shoot with the red button and that gives you almost a program auto mode. Now if your lighting is going to remain consistent, and that's sometimes difficult outdoors, you want to turn the top mode dial to the creative video mode, so that's the M with the video camera symbol on the top of the camera. Once you've turned to the creative video mode, if you look on page 2 of 5 again, the video record setup menu, you'll see the exposure mode. And if the lighting is going to remain constant, you can choose manual, and then you can set your own shutter speed, aperture and ISO according to the lighting conditions. Or you can select the program auto mode, which is again putting the camera into a semi-automatic mode, and it will choose the shutter, aperture and ISO according to the light. You can put it in aperture priority mode, or preferably you put it into shutter priority mode. And I'm saying shutter priority because that's the key to getting this video look which doesn't look as though it's staccato and stuttery. So what shutter speed should we use? Well, the golden rule is to use a shutter speed which is exactly twice the frame rate. So I'm shooting at 4K 25 frames per second. So the golden rule is to use a shutter speed which is twice the frame rate. So I'd be using the shutter speed at 1/50 of the second, and dependent on the aperture of the camera, I might need to adjust the ISO to achieve that. Now, if you are going to be shooting outdoors, you'll find that sometimes you can't achieve that 50th of a second. Even if you're shooting at ISO 80 and you've got the camera set up to f8, you can't achieve a 50th of a second. In that sort of situation, it's better if you use what's called a neutral density filter. If you like, it's the usual sunglasses for the camera. It reduces the amount of light entering the camera. You know, I use a variable neutral density filter, and you can see that on screen now. I've got two versions. One is the 2 to 5 stop, and the other is 6 to 9 stops. Under most circumstances, I'll be just using the 2 to 5, as I find that about 3 or 4 is sufficient in this bright sunlight to give me a 50th of a second at ISO 80. And with this camera, the aperture ranging from say f4 to f8 under bright conditions, and the amount of zoom you've got set is ideal. The waterfall shots that you'll see in a moment were taken without a filter, and the exposure was 1/320th of a second, and you can see that the water droplets are almost frozen in time. When I got the camera set to a 50th of a second, and with the neutral density dialed into 3ND, you can see that a 50th of a second the water looks far more natural. So that's how you achieve that look using neutral density filters. So when it comes to recording audio for your video, as I mentioned in the introduction, it's better to get good clean audio, and for that reason you might want to use your mobile phone. You could use the audio recorder or notes recorder on your phone to capture audio. Put that in your top pocket, keep these microphones close to your voice as you can, and you'll get some good audio. You could also use a separate audio recorder, and I've got a little one here which has got a built-in SD card which allows me to record audio. This one is from Lensgo. It was part of a wireless microphone set, but I just tend to use this as a pure audio recording device. You can also use a standalone audio recorder such as a Zoom H1 or H2 recorder to capture audio as well. So that is the secret to getting good audio for your video. Now you'll find that if you're hand holding this camera to record video, you may notice some fluttering on the image, called micro jitters. And if you look at some of my scenes where I've handheld them, particularly of that deer in the forest, you could actually see the grass was shaking in the foreground, and that's because the camera's moving at the time that the frame is being resolved by the sensor, and that's what we call micro jitter. To overcome that, it's better to shoot from a tripod or a monopod, something which will hold the camera a lot more stable, and you'll get rid of those micro jitters. It's worse in 1080p, I feel, than it is in 4K. So if you can shoot in 4K, you're getting that extra benefit as well. Again, shooting from a tripod, you've got that benefit that you can use that 50th of a second shutter speed and get some nice static shots as well. So if you can, use a tripod or a monopod or any sort of mechanical device that will stabilize the camera to give you better footage. You can in fact use a gimbal for this camera. Some of the larger gimbals will take this camera. Remember, you wouldn't be able to zoom because the change in lens position will change the weight distribution on the gimbal and cause it to flutter perhaps. So again, if you use it at the 25mm or 34mm in 4K, you'll find that you're getting decent shots and fairly well stabilized using handheld gimbal, which I'll probably try in a later video for you. Now, another benefit of shooting in the 4K video mode is the fact that you can actually extract 8 megapixel still images from it. But the secret there is to use as fast a shutter speed as you can. Where we've been selecting a 50th of a second for motion in video, we want to use a high shutter speed, say a 250th or a 500th, to enable us to get freeze motion within the video frames. To do that, you might have to raise ISO to something like 200, and you'll be using the lowest aperture you can, so the f2.8 if at wide angle, or up to f4 if you're using the sort of telephoto end. But if you're using f5.9, again, you might have to use higher ISOs to enable you to get that still picture. But it does give you the opportunity of being able to scroll through your timeline and find the exact moment in that sequence that you want for that still image. It's great for capturing images. You'll see on the screen now some shots I've taken out of a 4K video, and I think they look fairly good. You can, of course, create time-lapse sequences with the camera, and you've got the facilities there to create time-lapse. Something I've not done a lot of, but I like to see the effects of some people's work, especially the nighttime ones, or we're changing from day to night or night to day, and see the motion in the background there. So that's something I might try again for you in a later video. Well, that's it for part 5 of this series, and I hope you are getting some benefit from it. If you're a new viewer and you're liking what you see, please do hit that subscribe button and the bell notification icon to be advised when I upload the next video in this series. Now, the next video will be a wrap up, and it'll be showing you some of the other features you can use with this camera to get some fantastic images or video. So I look forward to bringing you that in the not too distant future. Of course, if you are a new viewer and you've not already seen my photographic blog, have a look at it. There'll be a link in the video description below. It's also on screen. You can actually then join my newsletter group. It just goes out to about 4,000 people now, and that's between 4 and 6 weeks depending on the amount of time I've got to create it. It's not just a newsletter, it's a technical publication in many respects, some things that I don't publish on the blog, as a way of saying thank you for joining the newsletter group and enjoying the subscription. Now, as with all my videos, you notice there are no mid-roll ads. I want you to enjoy the video without any breaks, so I hope you appreciate that. So again, thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you all very, very soon. Goodbye for now.